Brody. We're going to be talking through, well, I guess the whole 4 game slate. We'll talk a little bit about some showdown stuff, some Saturday only, whatnot. I will also be back here tomorrow. I can't promise for Rody, but I'll be back here tomorrow at what time is it? It's at I put it in the Discord. I believe 1 Eastern time. Yeah, that's right. So we'll be back for that. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, look, it's pretty wild to have like a 4 game slate where like every single one you could make a case for. So I'm kind of interested here, Rody. What are your sort of overall thoughts on this one?
Yeah. Overall thoughts is like there's a couple players I don't want to fade.
Yeah.
So, overall thoughts, I don't understand why the dome game is a little bit lower owned. I'm seeing I guess the fastest pace is still the Ravens game, and then it's the KC Buffalo. But like some of these weather games outside, there's some wind concerns in the Ravens game, some big gusts. But the dome game's getting a little bit lower owned. I think Evans, Amon, we know where the ball's going there. I really like that play. Just kind of an overview, that's kind of like the dome game is kind of my favorite one. And then deciding whether we can get CMC in my lineups or not. He's been tough to fit in here with some of the builds you got to build. You got kind of make some decisions. There's a lot of really good players I like on the slate. So,
yeah, and it's interesting because coming off of a playoff weekend where all the cheap guys sort of had some success, right? You had Moore, you had what's his name, Trey Palmer with the big play. Like you had a lot of value hitting. So I'm sort of forcing some of that value in, and we'll talk about it. We'll go position by position and whatnot. But my strategy was to try to play Baltimore. Well, was to try to play Lamar and Josh Allen because of the rushing upside, and try to pair in the receivers from Tampa Bay, Detroit. It's hard to do unless you want to play the cheap ones or unless you want to fade McCaffrey, which I'm much higher on McCaffrey, obviously, than any other running back. So I really do want to play him. So, but you can get creative with, a slew of different, David Moore is going to be completely unowned again, just throwing it out there. So it'll Trey Palmer. I would get exposure to those guys. I'm also going to be, Josh Reynolds is projecting to be the really popular one, but I think, and Jameson will be owned as well. But I mean, those are 2 cheap options you have if you wanted to do something like that. But that was sort of my overall thinking, is I just think the upside is so high for those guys. I'm also worried, you worry a little bit with Baltimore. Occasionally it's a game script that they can just run the ball and they'll do that. Lamar is a part of that, but the touchdowns might, they hand the ball off at the 1 and the 2 yard line to Edwards, Justice Hill, whatever. So it's not like the Jalen Hurts upside where you just know if you get within the 2, you're getting the rushing touchdown. So it's an interesting slate. We've also got your Packers on it. So instead of going like game by game, or I think we will go position by position instead. But then let's talk a little bit, after we do that, we can talk a little bit about today. But right now we'll focus on the 4 game side of it. What do you have? I've got my exposures right now. I just posted them for anybody who's a premium member. I posted them in Discord. They're definitely going to change. And also, like, one thing is anything that's on a Sunday, I can always backload. You know what I mean? I can always swap over to, based on how I'm doing, to maybe some lower owned stuff or some stuff that I like a little more as chalk. But what do you have right now currently as your main quarterbacks this weekend?
Yeah, like I said, I really like that dome game. I kind of like the Baker Goff. I think they're projecting pretty good. Getting a little bit Mahomes as well in the KC, just because they throw it to 2 guys. I think this week they're even looking to throw it to just 2 guys with 2 guys out. So those are my favorite quarterbacks. I understand the rushing upside with Lamar and Josh Allen, but I mean, yeah, there is a little bit of value on the slate, as you talked about, some cheaper guys. But even using a 3K guy, you're still hurting to jam in some really good plays around it. I think, some really good spots for other players. But I mean, I do love Lamar with Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is a really good value play at 6K. Likely is a good tight end play. So you can stack him up if you want. His rushing prop, 52 yards, is pretty decent. It's a little windy there. You could see him rushing it a little bit more. I do like that a little bit. So yeah, I do like that. Josh Allen, I don't mind. I think Diggs is good. Man, we've been playing Diggs a lot, and he's haven't had a big week, but maybe this is his week. He's got a pretty low value or low yardage prop that you can bet on some of those pick sixes that Bobby's been doing, or some of the straight bets if you guys want to get in on that for Diggs. It's pretty low. I know Shakir's a good play. Gabe Davis is out this week as well. You always got Kincaid and Knox in that stack. I do like the Josh Allen stack a little bit as well. I think that's a pace up game as well. So I see it, but you can also play like the Goff and the Mayfield stacks. It's a dome game. It's inside. Evans was kind of a big play last week. He dropped a couple balls, or he would have had a huge game too. So, I think he's in play this week too. So we'll get to some other players, but I mean, that's kind of my I probably should mention the Packers. I'm wearing a Packers shirt, but they have a lot of weapons back. Watson's back this week. Reed, Dobbs had the big game last week. Musgrave caught a wide open touchdown. Tucker Kraft still in the mix there at tight end as well. They just have so many weapons. And then Aaron Jones is playing phenomenal. They just have a lot of weapons, so we don't really know where the ball is going. And the 49ers defense is very good. So same with the Ravens defense. They're very good, and Stroud's been playing good, but maybe their time's come. The defenses are really good for the Ravens and the Niners this week, so I'm kind of on these other stacks just because of that. But I don't mind mixing in some guys from those games. You're going to get lower ownership on those games.
Yeah, I think so too. So what I've got right now, I have 30% Lamar as my quarterback. I'm probably going to lessen that number. I have 16% Bayfield, 15% Goff, and 15% Baker. In my higher buy-in, I think I might go Baker. I actually like the Lions to crush them in that game, but I do think they're going to rely a lot more on the passing game. Both the Lions and the Packer and the Bucks are really good against the run and allow just infinite yards to both wide receivers and tight ends, and you've got some great options to stack them with there. Josh Allen, I'll have in more buy-ins than I do Baker. And Patrick Mahomes, I'll be just south of that. But all those guys are above 10%. I only have 4% of Love. But I'm a little more spread out at quarterback than I planned to be for a 4-game slate, certainly. With Lamar definitely leading the way for me. But definitely could see an argument for any of these guys. Detroit, if they're able to run the ball, which I don't expect them to be able to do consistently with success, they're going to try. That's the only reason I have Mayfield a little bit ahead of Goff. I think that the Tampa Bay will just say, okay, you know what? We can't run the ball. We're going to go to the passing game. And even if you're playing Rashad White or things like that, it's I think a lot of his work's going to be done through the passing game. Same with Jahmyr Gibbs today. But yeah, I have it basically Jackson and then Jackson and Allen are my two favorites in terms of I have the most money allocated to them. But Baker, Goff, Purdy, I have all in the same range. And I like the Purdy thing. We've seen this onslaught work a bunch of times, but I just think I'd rather play the Baker and Goff slightly for my higher buy-ins than Purdy. It's very close though for me. Really struggle with those decisions.
Yeah, that's a tough decision. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So for the 4-gamer, what do you got at running back, Rody?
I think this might be the toughest spot on the slate this week. CMC's good. But I mean, he's got to probably get over 25 to really, get you there at his price tag at 8.88K. He doesn't really fit well when you're building lineups because you want to play other players as these like 6K guys do. Like Singletary grades out really well. He's low owned, or not low owned, but I mean, lower priority for most people. But 5,700, he kind of fits. The Ravens defense is good. I'm having a hard time playing him, but the projections tell me to do so. But Pacheco and James Cook are two guys I really like in a pace up game that can get some more work. James Cook's been getting a lot more work. Pacheco's been a good hard runner. I don't mind a little Gus Edwards either at 5,900. I know people are lower on him. He's about 13% owned. He's a little bit lower than anybody else. Another guy I know Bobby's kind of avoiding, like the Gibbs Montgomery plays. Montgomery is only about 9%, less than 9% owned. He is a good play. Anybody can get in the box. They fall down to the 1-yard line. He can get a run or two. That's what you're hoping for in that situation, because I don't think they're going to run very good on the Bucks. You just hope they get a couple touchdowns down on the 1 or 2 yard line or something.
Yeah.
I'm not playing any of the cheap running backs, really. Maybe Elijah Mitchell a little bit, maybe some Justice Hill. I'm just sprinkling all these guys in, a little Rashad White, little Aaron Jones. He's just been playing too good, getting a lot of usage. So really, I mentioned all the main running backs. I don't have any cheap running backs in my game. I'm really sprinkling in some of the other guys. I really like the 6K guys and a little bit of Singletary. So just kind of mix and match. I think one of these guys is going to be good. If CMC gets under like 25 fantasy points, so it's going to be tough to use them. I just think there's some really good receivers that we're going to talk about here in a minute. So
yeah. And that's the thing, is that I feel myself leaning more a little bit towards some of these receivers. So I
Yeah.
currently have 61% Pacheco. He's my highest owned running back. I'm making a very hard stance on that one. I mean, not a very hard, but you double the field. I also, I will have 50+% of McCaffrey. Right now I have 3 big buy-ins on DraftKings for the weekend slate. He's in 2 of them.
Wait, sorry, who's that? McCaffrey, you said?
McCaffrey, yeah.
Okay, and
Next
those
I
2
have
of your 3 buy-ins, okay.
Yeah,
I have 3 as well, guys. I have 3 5.5s. I know Sheets isn't here. He likes to tell everyone what we're playing. I got 3 5.5 tickets, so I'm excited to burn those up today. So
yeah, nice, man. Yeah, it should be a fun. Hopefully, we have a little sweat with each other coming down Sunday night.
yeah, it's a big contest today. So yeah, Sunday night.
Yeah.
It's going to be a 2-day, so we got to hold up for tomorrow.
I know. It's like the old days of DFS. I'm kind of missing it.
Yeah.
Pacheco, McCaffrey are the 2 I have above 50%, and I'm a little spread out after that. Nobody more than 20% right now. James Cook is next for me. Then Singletary. I don't like the Singletary. I'm like, just in terms of the field, I'm going to be below the field on Singletary, above the field Pacheco, above the field McCaffrey, below the field Rachaad White, Aaron Jones, just below the field. Although I'm actually thinking I should probably get a little bit more. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'll be below the field, but not by much, pretty close. Gus Edwards, probably right with the field, around 10% or so. I like Justice Hill more for the Saturday slate only, but I don't mind if you wanted to gamble on him on the 4-day. And I also don't mind like in showdown, like Edwards-Helaire, but that's a whole different conversation. I don't think you're playing these guys on the 4-gamer. So that's sort of the way I'm looking at running back today. Be well overweight Pacheco, McCaffrey, the ones I feel best about. Cook and Singletary be just slightly south of the field, and then just basically be under the field on everybody else. Clay says San Francisco's going down today. I'm sure Rhodey would like that. I personally can't quite co-sign it, but I actually think that they might get completely walloped. But I hope I'm always a big fan of the Niners going down anyway. I hate San Francisco sports, so let's go Packers. I'm a Packer fan today. My Rams in our little battle in Discord, because I was pretty battle in Discord. I mean, it's rough when your team loses like that, regardless of which calls were which shot, whatever. It was just a really poorly officiated game in general.
Yeah, it was bad. There was calls on all over the place that were just terrible that game.
Yeah, and I wanted my guy, you know what I mean? And also, like, the Rams, like, literally, I felt like completely controlled the game after the first quarter, like, completely. And they just couldn't get in the end zone. They kept kicking field goals.
Yeah, too many field goals, right? Yeah, they just couldn't get in the end zone for you guys. You guys really did control that whole second half, to be honest with you. And after the first quarter where the Lions got a big lead there, then you guys really started to come back and really control the game. You just couldn't get in the end zone. So
yeah, I definitely think that the Rams have a good case for being the best team no longer in the playoffs based on last week. All right, but I love your Lions this week, by the way. I think that's another one. Even though I'm playing big, I think the Lions may absolutely just kill Tampa Bay. They've already killed them this year in Tampa Bay. I really don't know how Tampa Bay is going to. But I also think that means a lot of fantasy points for Baker. So let's switch over to wide receiver.
Right. Baker could score a lot of points. Yeah.
Yeah, just from the game flow. What do you have here, wide receiver wise?
Yeah, receiver is a position I really like. Obviously, I'm on St. Brown as the guy this week, and I do use the word lock sometimes. The CMC, like, people are locking him in, or I'm on St. Brown, people are locking him in. But I don't really lock anybody, but he would be a guy I really like. This week. I know Jamison Williams and Josh Reynolds, guys, those 3 played a lot of snaps last week. All 3 of those receivers. DPJ came in a little bit. There's no Khalif Raymond to worry about in Detroit. Those 3 guys are playing a lot of ball for them. So if you're taking some props, take the overs on Josh Reynolds, looks a good value. Even Jamison Williams a little bit I like, but I also like the run back in that game with Mike Evans. I think he was a couple of touchdowns or a couple drops away from having a monster game last week. And he's in that same game. So I really like him. Rice is 6,800 on DK. That's a really good price tag. He's getting a lot of work. Tony's out for KC. Sky Moore's out for KC. They literally behind Rice is Justin Watson and Mecole Hardman. So, like, they're really going to get it to Rice and Kelsey, I think, this week a little bit. Diggs has had a down week, but his ownership's a little bit lower. He's had a down, but Gabe Davis is out, and it's a playoffs game. So Diggs is going to get fed the ball, I think. He could have a big game. I like him. Zay Flowers is only 6K. I really like him as well. He's one of my favorite guys. I think he's been getting a lot more work. His yard prop's only 50 yards, so I think he does over that this week. Shakir's a value play at 3.8 that I really like. He's just cheap. Yeah, the cheap guys are tough this week for me. I know Watson at 3,300, Mecole Hardman at 3K, Watson at 4,200. I kind of like. Jameson's the 3,600 I really like, and Josh Reynolds the 3,700 I really like. Those guys are going to get massive ownership. But I really like them. They're good. You know, maybe Bobby's got a couple other value plays. You know, Debo I'm a little higher on, but he's expensive. I like his yard prop better. It was like 56. Now it's up to 15 or 60 and a half now. I got some for 58, 59. But like he's climbing a little bit. The total's climbing in that Green Bay San Francisco game and the Detroit Bucks game for what it's worth. So yeah, I think I got pretty much everyone. I'm not really on the Nico. I know he's been tearing it up with Stroud, but I'm not really on that. Godwin's price is good if you double stack it, but I kind of prefer the Otten. We'll get to at tight end a little bit with Evans there for the Baker stack, but I don't mind the double stack. As always, you know, I'll let Bobby give out some takes that he's got. Also, guys, check out his exposures. He's got all his exposures for Saturday, showdowns, current ownerships, bets, all that in the premium Discord, guys. Don't forget to check that out.
Appreciate that. So wide receiver, I know that he's popular. I think Amon-Ra is definitely the best play on the slate. And it's hard to play lineups with one of my two expensive quarterbacks and McCaffrey and him. So of course I'm forcing that in. I'm going to be I have him about 50% right now. I have a ton of Jameson Williams. Again, I can always make those swaps though on Saturday. If I want to go, I left room to switch over to Shakir if I want to. I can switch over to Josh Reynolds, but right now I have St. Brown and Williams as my two highest owned receivers, followed by Palmer and Evans under the same caveat. I can always switch over to Rashee Rice, from Evans, depending on what I want to do, how my lineups are looking. And again, with Trey Palmer, that's sort of like just a placeholder that I can always switch over to Shakir. I have Brandon Ayuk and Debo next, basically both around 20%. Same with Shakir, who I will probably switch some of those guys to. Same as Reynolds, but again, those guys are all flexible and somewhat interchangeable. I do have like 15% John Mechie, 15% Jaden Reed, 10% Rashee Rice, only 10% Godwin. I want to get a little bit more of that. And I actually like the receivers, but I really like double tight ends this week. I've always said in the playoffs, it works out better than it does during the season. And it's been really, really good so far. I mean, every tight end has been basically going off, or doing something, you know what I mean? Even like I had the low-owned Freiermuth on the 2-game slate. It looked like a nice play because he's, he had 11 fantasy points with in the third quarter for 3,600, I think he was. And he was like the worst of the tight ends that week. It was just like everybody was nailing it. So I think I'm going to go a little bit more tight end, but I think the guys you use to get creative. I mentioned Zay Flowers, right? I have 20% of Zay Flowers. I think Zay Flowers is going to be significantly lower owned than he's projected. I just don't see that much ownership. I just don't think he's going to get that much ownership. But it is a little bit spread out. The real ones I'm taking a stand on are the pretty chalky ones in St. Brown, Williams. But I am forcing in some Zay Flowers, some Aguilar, and some Odell Beckham Jr. just to go with my Lamar stacks. All right, let's see tight ends, Rody. What do you got?
Yeah, I probably should have mentioned a little bit more on the San Francisco side. I didn't, like you mentioned, Ayuk and Debo a little bit. They just got so many weapons there. You just don't really know who it's going to go. That's the problem with stacking Purdy. I like picking and choosing a couple guys. You could get a little different with CMC, Ayuk, or like Kittle, which is Kittle's a tight end, 5,200. I do like him. Packers do give up a little bit to the tight ends. So I did make sure I wanted to get a little bit of Kittle this week. Kelsey's only 6K. He's kind of cheap for his price tag, but he hasn't really been doing much. But we got to expect a playoff game on him, a big game one of these days. So I make sure I spread it out for him a little bit. Isaiah Likely, I like at 4,700 a lot. I like the K-Dot and play at 3,500. He's probably the optimal play this week if you're building like a cash thing, but he's definitely the cheap guy to get in there that I like. Dawson Knox at 3K has been getting some usage, does get some end zone threats. If you're stacking that up, you can play a Josh Allen with him a little bit too. I mean, obviously they have Kincaid. He gets a lot of work I don't mind Kincaid at 4,800 as well. He's a good play. Those are kind of my main tight ends. I'm just kind of rotating them in and out. 1,2,500 guy did play a little bit in a couple golf stacks was Brock Wright. Laporta is injured. If he goes down at all, or something, re-aggravate something. Brock White was still getting work in there, even with Laporta in the game. And Laporta, you didn't see much of him after he scored that touchdown last week. So
Right.
maybe he was feeling it a little bit. We don't know about it, but so he's a cheap guy. Just threw in a couple, and then those are my main tight ends. I did get a little Tucker Kraft and Musgrave. And if you stack, I did a couple love stacks. I kind of stacked everyone just to have a couple, but just to make sure I got all my bases covered. But my main ones are the top guys, and probably Kate Otten is probably one of the best on the slate.
Yeah, I'm sort of with you on most things. So I love Otten, Kittle, Kelsey, Laporta, and I love the ownership will be lower than because people are afraid with Laporta, and rightfully.
Yeah, so. I think that's a good point. I didn't mention the ownership on Laporta is really low. That's a good play to get him in there. So
so Laporta right now I've got at 25%, and his ownership looks like it's going to be sub 10%. I don't know if I'll end up with that, but like I said, I'm going a lot of double tight ends. The Tampa Bay is one of the worst teams in football against the tight end position. There's a lot of really bad teams that are left. Green Bay is one of the worst in football against the tight end position. So I love George Kittle.
That's why I said I know all tight ends tear them up every week.
Detroit also horrible against tight ends. Kate Otten. So all these things look great, and for good measure, Houston also really bad against tight ends. So Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely is the biggest stance I'm taking. I'm probably going to lower this after we get off, but I have 40% of them right now, and I'm getting a lot of 2 tight end sets, but Isaiah Likely is going to be like sub 10% also. And it's just, look, we're talking about a 4-gamer, ways to get different. The last game he played, he had 2 touchdowns before getting hurt. I do think he takes on more of the Andrews role. The problem is it really depends on the game flow and sort of what they're doing. But I think that they have that little design play they always run for him near the goal line. I just think there's a good chance of him to score at least 1 touchdown today. And the hard part is, like, I like to play him and Kittle together, and I'm finding myself playing like Kelsey with Laporta or Otten with Kelsey or something like that. You know what I mean? But Likely is in a funny price range. So I think what I'm going to do is play Likely in some of my Kincaid lineups and get that similar price range figured out, because I don't necessarily love Likely to outscore Kittle most of the time here, but I do. I mean, you are getting a cheaper price, and look, you're just getting the ownership discount. So I'm actually, like, it's weird because I'm looking at the projected ownership, and somehow I'm overweight all the tight ends right now except for Kincaid, which I'm going to change after we get off here, which means that I'm just playing a lot of double tight end lineups. I'm not playing much. I'm not playing enough Dalton Schultz or Tucker Kraft. I am playing some Luke Musgrave, even though he didn't play out most of the snaps last week. I think you might see him trending back in the right direction this week, but it feels a little thin when you have Kate Otten at the same price. So I'm going to say that I do want to get a little bit to Dalton Schultz more, and I want to get a little bit less Likely, probably a little bit less Musgrave too. Musgrave, Likely. Sorry, just making my notes. Brody, what do you got for defenses this weekend? Because I do think that you do have to spend. It's funny because those extra few hundred made a big difference for me in some of my builds. So I did need to spend down more than I wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, defense wise, I do agree. Spread it out a little bit. I mean, everyone, you can see that nothing's over 20%. They're all like 15 to 20% owned. The main ones are going to be the Chiefs, Bills, Lions, 49ers, Ravens. No one has any faith for the Texans, Packers, and Bucks, but they're the cheapest ones. So if you need a little bit of extra salary, I don't mind it. A pick 6 can happen anywhere. A fumble can happen anywhere. But my favorite ones are probably the 49ers and the Ravens if you can get to them. I like both of them. I think they're elite defenses. The Ravens are an elite defense. So, so those are my favorite one. I'm getting myself to a little bit of the Lions at 3,300 a little bit. But I mean, like, the Lions could smoke them, but I mean, the Bucks could score a lot of points too. So, it's kind of every game, I like. So I'm just trying to maybe get the cheaper ones a little bit. Chiefs at 2.7 or Bills at 2.8 fit good, fit and builds a little bit better, I think, for me. Mm-hmm. But I'm just kind of mixing and matching.
Yeah, I currently have like the Bills the most, and it's just for the reason you said. Like, I just found that the Bills were a little bit easier to get to with that extra few hundred. I'm happy. The thing is, I like Kansas City to win that game, so I'm going to swap some of that over to Kansas City right after we get off of here. I have the Niners as the Niners are my desired one. The Ravens are my second most desired one, but I just had a harder time getting to as much of them. But I'm going to make sure to get a little bit more Ravens defense after we get off of here. Right now I have Bills, Niners, and then I like to get weird and play the defenses that people don't want to play. So I have some Texans. I have 10% each of the Bucks, Texans, and who was the other one? Oh, the Packers. Just because just for the argument's sake of literally if you played the Packers defense last week, it was a great example. Cheapest defense. They were like 4% owned, and even on the 3-gamer, they were 4% owned. So the Packers defense is going to be completely overlooked again. Look, you get that one pick six, we get Purdy thrown off his back foot. We've seen it before. Let's go with a little bit of that. So it's interesting because usually when we're playing an 11-game slate, you want lineups that sort of fit a game script, right? It's much harder to do with these 4 games, and you sort of have to individually script each build a little bit. Is that how you see it, Rody?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm definitely doing. Do you want to talk a little bit? Are you playing the showdown at all for the first couple games?
I've been doing a little bit of the showdowns through the playoffs. Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about a little bit of showdown here.
Okay. I just thought it was let me just pull up my showdown page here because I've got my notes of what I've got, and it's kind of weird juggling stuff around. It's also weird that they made the $5.55 and the $20 have this $25. They both have the same prize pool, so I kept editing my lineups and accidentally putting the $5.55 into the wrong lineups.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah,
so beware of that, guys. That's a big one. I've had that happen to me before. Yeah. It's I would say it's not fun, but it actually worked out in my favor last time, so I can't complain. All right, Houston showdown versus Baltimore. What I've got basically is I'm just going to look through my different captains, and I'm pretty much with a lot of the chalky plays. But captain-wise, looking at ownership, that's where I like to try to get different on these things. And you have a bunch of different options here. So I think Zay Flowers as an incredibly low-owned captain he's actually picked up some steam. He was 3% when I first looked. Now he's up to 7%. Still low enough for me to use him as captain a little bit. I am using my other captains I'm just looking. Sorry, I'm trying to get all my stuff sorted here. My other captains, where is that chain of lineups? This is really frustrating. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second here. I'm trying to find out exactly. I don't want to lie to anybody. I want to tell the truth. So let's see. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. So my captains are one captain that I love. Look, play the opposite side of Baltimore and play CJ Stroud as captain. You know what I mean? Look, I'm on Baltimore to win the Super Bowl, everything. But CJ Stroud being sub 5% or sub 2% owned at captain, and you could play it with Lamar. It's not that hard. So that would be a good captain to me. I like the Lively. I like the Zay Flowers. I like a little bit of Gus Edwards or Justice Hill. And then the main plays, I'm not going to fade Lamar. I'm not going to fade Stroud. Oh, and I forgot to mention my other one is Dalton Schultz, who is probably in the best position of an offensive player outside of Stroud. I mean, they're all in tough spot against this Baltimore defense, but Dalton Schultz as a captain, I think you could definitely get away with. So I'm into that. I'm into that idea. Did you come across any captains that might be a little bit creative, or would you go?
I did a little bit of the Ravens defense again. Really make some nice stuff fit. But I have a Nico Collins captain on one, which would be a little different. I didn't get to the Zay, but I like Zay. I got him in a lot of lineups. A likely captain I did do like you did. I did a Singletary. Couple of Gus Edwards, I think, just because I kind of tiered to these lower price ones, but then I do have 3 Lamar Jackson captains. But I did tier to kind of the cheaper captains just so I could fit more of the pieces, but then make sure you got lower owned pieces in there. Don't play a cheap captain and then kind of load it up with all the studs. You get kind of the same build all over the place, but.
Yeah, and I just want to throw out that if you're going to look, everybody's going to be. It's going to be 4-2, 5-1 Baltimore in a lot of lineups. So anything like 4-2 for Houston will be very unusual, and I think that's a really reasonable strategy.
Yeah.
And you play Lamar and whoever you want, Flowers or Likely or whatever. That's what I would probably do, and then do the 4-2.
Yeah, and some of my Lamar captains, I use some really interesting players too. You can get Xavier Hutchinson cheap, Pollar's cheap. Some guy named Andrew Beck.
Yeah.
What a $200 player. That's, these are the sheet specials. You know what I mean? The cheap 200. Yeah. He's like a Houston running back, the 200 running back that gets a little bit of work, maybe falls in the end zone. Some luck of the draw. Just but just to be different, I did a little bit of Fairbairn too, stuff like that. The kicker for Houston.
Yep, makes sense to me.
So yeah,
I threw in a little bit of
I
Ravens
just threw
deep.
about 10 in there. So yeah.
I've only got like probably a little bit less than that actually myself, but just threw it out there. I did play one of the 222s. All right, about the Saturday full slate. Are you playing that one? The Saturday 2-gamer.
2-gamer Saturday. I didn't even get in on that one.
Maybe most of the good tournaments are probably sold out. I guess that's maybe why. I think they sold out pretty fast.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I'm playing that one. I'll just say that Lamar, my quarterbacks will be Lamar and Purdy are the chalky ones, but maybe some ways to get different. I'll just throw out there really quick. I do think Justice Hill, you're not going to get that different, but it's something. I think maybe playing a tiny bit of Eli Mitchell is not a bad idea if you're playing. I don't know. I'm trying to get creative, and it's a little bit hard on the 2-gamer personally. I'm playing a lot of I'm sort of surprised Mechie's not getting ownership even in the 2-gamer. Nelson Aguilar is a guy I really like in the 2-gamer because he's 3,700 and going to have no ownership. Bo Melton is a guy you could use on a 2-gamer. Xavier Hutchinson, as Rody mentioned before for the showdown. Those are some guys you can use to differentiate what's going to likely be a very chalky build almost every way you go. The one thing is that's crazy, like nobody's playing Musgrave, it looks like. I don't buy it entirely, but I don't know. Like, I understand that he got out snapped, but quality of targets. I think that it's going to go. I think it's going to be more split. I think Musgrave is going to play less snaps probably, but have more targets than Kraft. And I personally am siding a little bit with Musgrave, and just want to reemphasize my look. If Houston's gonna move the ball, whether they're down or up, I think Dalton Schultz is the best way for them to do it. But I've underestimated Nico Collins a few too many times, so I can't say too much on that one. All right, Rody, I guess we're probably going to get out of here. Look, it's only 2 games today. We've got 2 more tomorrow. Guys, if there's any questions, feel free to drop them in. But I will. I guess I'll take my Lamar stacks, and Lamar to Flowers is going to be in the winner for the weekend slate, and I guess Lamar to Flowers and likely. That's sort of my overall thing. I also think that the double tight end is the way to go builds wise, which is just from a strategy standpoint, something I want to drop.
Yeah, I like all that. I do have a couple bet. Just look at the bets too. I gave out through the show, and then you get a little easy money like Ravens, Lions, Chiefs. I know Bobby liked the Chiefs today. I like the Chiefs or tomorrow, but like that's plus 160 for a bet. So put those 3 together. So I like those, and just some good bets that I mentioned through the show. I hope you get in on some of that. I'm going to stick to that Lions-Bucks game today. I'm going to build my main 3 lineups here after this. I'm definitely like the Zay. I like the Amon plays today in the Mike Evans. But like I said, it's hard to get all that in there this week. So just try to make sure you get a little different in spots. And then I think it's going to be a fun little weekend of football.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go back to editing a little bit, guys. And once we get out of here, and then I'll update my stuff in the Discord. I usually post it, but because there's so much stuff going on that's all over the place, I instead of putting it on the site, I'm just putting it directly in the Discord for the weekend, for the rest of the NFL year, just because there's only a little bit left. But Rody, anything else, or do you want to just take us out of here?
I don't have anything, but make sure you guys hit that like button on the way out. Like Bobby said, check the Discord. He'll have his exposures in there. I dropped my playbook in there earlier, just kind of breaks down, highlighted all the players that I'm on mostly, which is what I showed off mostly in the show today. Obviously, my playbook is what I just did that like an hour ago before the show, and same players I mentioned in the show. So check that out. I did a write-up strategy and how to do my, build this strategy a little bit, the 2+1 strategy. I do kind of a little bit in these smaller slates as well. So there's a little bit of that in there. So check that out. If you're a premium member, you're going to want to get in on that action. So as always, good luck. Have fun with football weekend. We'll see you tomorrow, and let's get it.